And for further analysis, we're joined from Ramallah by the writer and researcher Ahmad Zakarneh. Mr. Ahmad, welcome to Q News. And first off, reference to Israel planning to expand its military operations on Gaza. What are the strategic objectives behind Israel's continued military actions in Gaza?
Good afternoon to you and to the dear viewers. Of course, the main objective that is now very evident is targeting the Palestinian population and trying to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian population by using starvation as a weapon, and one time by military bombing and evacuations, reaching the idea of ethnic cleansing, and also reaching to extend this war to an endless war until the Palestinian cause is completely liquefied. And this is the Netanyahu desire not only for the Gaza Strip but also for the West Bank, and consequently Netanyahu and the far-right Israeli government think that it is high time to end the Palestinian cause completely once and for all, and therefore he's trying to fix or address the demographic conflict by getting rid of the Palestinian population, or as much as possible of this population, which goes side by side in the Smotrich theory stated a few years ago, that saying that evacuation, displacement, or the dislocation of the population, or killing the population and having the Palestinian population living as slaves inside their homelands. And this is the Israeli desire to have less than 50% of Palestinians compared to the Jewish population on the Palestinian lands.
Now, sir, according to Israeli media reports, Israel has called on tens of thousands of reserve soldiers in preparation for the assault on Gaza. However, these soldiers informed their commanders about their intention to refuse this expansion. How do you interpret this and the impact of the continuity of this process?
It's true that there is a major military ability in the Israeli hands, and therefore they are practicing these operations in Gaza Strip. But we cannot forget that the internal public Israeli opinion have a lot of divisions, starting regarding the Netanyahu government and the composition of the government in general, and with the Netanyahu personality in particular. Netanyahu has worked for a very long time on changing the identity of the Israeli state, and shifting the Israeli community into all types of extremism and brutality, which created a lot of divisions and disagreements inside the internal Israeli public opinion. These divisions will negatively impact the course of the war and the related decisions, as well as the outcomes of the war, because not all of his desires will be reached eventually. Of course, Netanyahu far-right government have the intention to liquidate this cause. The divisions inside Israel and the people who have lost hope and who have lost their diversity ideologically and intellectually will have negative impact, because this extremism and radicalism practiced by the settlers in particular, which is being armed by Smotrich with tens of thousands of weapons, these radicalism will extend to the Israeli inside. And this is what's going on now regarding the Israeli internal divisions, especially that the families of the detainees and the large number of the Israeli public now think that this is a political war for personal reasons, serving only the Prime Minister Netanyahu, and not the Jewish state. And let's be reminded of the latest statements of the defense minister and the Biden administration, that Israel was defeated strategically, and this will impact on the identity of the Israeli state and its existence.
Yes,
Several
sir.
estimates.
Allow me to interrupt you here because I would like to assess the political aspect. And building on what you said, with the Israeli government facing mounting pressure from the detainees, the families of the detainees, what are the key political goals Israel hopes to achieve with its expanded operations in Gaza then?
First of all, it's an attempt to survive, for Netanyahu to survive and to retain his position as prime minister. Also, the far right officials, for the first time, are assuming as much positions, and they are controlling the Israeli decision. These people, on top of whom Netanyahu wants the war to continue to stay, to remain in office, and consequently they are pushing for this direction. And adding to this, Netanyahu has internal corruption lawsuits, and he is also being persecuted internationally, given the arrest warrant issued by the ICJ. And also in Europe now he's facing a lot of criticism. So deterioration and economic stability are now reasons calling for Netanyahu, who's fearing prison and trial in Israeli courts. He does not want to end this war, and he only wants to favor his own personal interests on the account of the Palestinian people, the Lebanese people, and lately on the Syrian people as well. And he's trying to lure the United States to launch a military strike on Iran. All of these objectives that we're talking about only serve a personal agenda for the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is now being criticized broadly, even inside Israel, in the Israeli media, by his counterparts and by the families of the detainees, who are now practicing a lot of pressure to strike a deal to end the war and bring back the detainees.
Now, taking a closer look on the civilian casualties given the escalating death toll in Gaza, I have to ask you, what actions might the international community take to address the worsening humanitarian crisis and the potential violations of international law?
Of course, the international law violations has reached an unprecedented level in history, in modern history at the very least. And that's why the international system is now being tested in a very critical phase, which is very well known to the international organizations, on top of which the United Nations and the humanitarian and relief organizations and some of the Western states, who are now who should now be ashamed of this volume of brutality and genocide witnessed in the Palestinian territories, and using the weapon of starvation. And this triggered Britain, France, and Germany to call for an unhindered humanitarian aid access without any conditions from the Israeli government. On the other side, the Arab group led by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and some of the other Arab states active in the Palestinian cause are now leading the international alliance in partnership with France. This kind of pressure and this mobilization will bring all the parties to the state solution and to the negotiation table and to the political course, which is Netanyahu is trying to avoid for personal reasons. The international system has only one thing to resort to the Security Council, in accordance to the item 6 to have an executive power for the Security Council resolutions to be executed on the grounds, and also the international community shall practice some pressure on the United States in order to urge Israel to stop the war. And
Yes, Sarah, your point is clear. Sorry for cutting in due to the shortage of time. From Ramallah, that was the writer and researcher Ahmad Zakarneh. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News.